Welcome back to the blame game. It's been almost 4 whole years since I had to say that, so I'm going to ease myself back into the blame game by starting with something that doesn't have any actual gameplay analysis. It won't be boring, however, as we're kicking off the show with the lightning rod of League Esports LS himself. Before we dive in, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you dig it. Ding the bell. My ass definitely needs to get sponsored this year. Also, follow my Twitch. I'll be showing you the process of how I make these in the future. Twitch.tv/themarkz. Anyways, back to the content. LS joining Cloud9 as head coach was some of the biggest news of the offseason, and he got to work quickly reshaping the roster. The staff already had Church of LS disciple Max Waldo, as well as Fudge as a player on the roster, and the org signed its first Korean imports since 2016. They also revamped the academy team to focus more on assisting the main roster and brought in the last disciple of LS, Malice, whom he has worked with before. It's no surprise that some Redditors noticed these trends and quickly yelled, "Nepotism! The ultimate gotcha in esports hiring practices." But is this just having a vision and following through on it, or is LS actually nepotistic? Well, yes, he is. Asterisk. Let's clear up some semantics first. I'm pretty sure that initially nepotism referred to the practice of hiring family members, given that it originated in the church, with some members hiring their nephews, given that they didn't have their own heirs. Though the concept of hiring practices was discussed before previously. Some dictionary definitions only include family, but Wikipedia includes friends. Regardless, language evolves, and at this point, everyone knows what you're talking about in esports if you sling the dreaded nepotism tag around. They mean you're hiring friends. Is this an outright bad practice? Well, hiring outright totally unqualified friends and family for a position is obviously bad. Governmental positions being handed out to people with no formal education in said position is one such example that I think most can agree on. Sorry, my sister is a teacher. But the practice of hiring qualified friends/coworkers who you've worked with before, while technically nepotistic, is hardly worthy of condemnation. Often, having prior experience with someone lets you know if they're actually qualified for the position and what you're going to be asking of them, and is a better indicator than just resumes and interviews. It's also usually a case of confirmation bias. If I've worked with 200 people before, and I think most of them suck, but I hire one person who I think is qualified for a job that I'm in charge of hiring for, that could be called nepotistic, even if I also hired 50 other people during my time there who I've never known before in my life. There's even a precedent for this justified nepotism in sports. Coaches or GMs who join a new team will often hire staff that they've worked with before, analysts or players that they think can fill a role, such as a leadership position, in this new team. By now, I hope you've realized that it is extremely easy to call nepotism on hiring practices in public spaces, and that whether or not it was a good or bad hire must be judged on a case-by-case basis. Which brings us back to LS. LS has a fairly long history of scouting players. I won't pretend to know the whole exhaustive list of people and which ones have worked out and which ones haven't, but, Nemesis, Bwippo, Fudge. It indicates that LS is at least sometimes correct with his judgment of a player's skill. Now, Malice is someone whose results don't jump off the page, and he has a play style that's a little different than what's trendy these days. He's also pretty brash, which predisposes a lot of people to not like him. However, given his history in solo queue and competitive, I don't think there's any way that you could say that Malice is totally unqualified for an academy jungler position. Was LS's prior experience with Malice a massive reason for why he got signed? Obviously. That's why I said yes to the initial question of, is this technically nepotism? However, is it unreasonable to suggest that Malice hasn't hit his ceiling yet, and that LS, as a friend who's close to him, can see that potential better than others and knows the situation that he needs to thrive in, and thus signed him? No, that's very reasonable, which is why I put that asterisk there as well. Listen, if Malice is a bum and getting burger flipped in scrims and academy, you have my blessing to run with this criticism. But until we actually see a little bit more, I just don't think it's justified. This logic extends to all other nepotistic hires in the scene as well. You need to judge them on a case-by-case basis. LS hired someone for an academy spot, but other people are being hired for starting LCS positions. The requisite qualifications are by definition higher, meaning that they're getting judged on a different standard and are potentially a more egregious hire if things don't work out. Hiring a friend to be a waiter who doesn't quite work out isn't nearly as catastrophic as hiring your friend to run your entire restaurant that they then run into the ground. For example, Eika. In the end, it became apparent that that experiment failed. A lot of people think Blue and Takui and some others are headed down a similar path. However, maybe the people who are making these decisions know something we don't know because they are closer to those players, as well as the fact that maybe they want to give them the starting position in the LCS as opposed to Academy to put them in a situation with better teammates so that they can more quickly make their judgment. I'm personally withholding any criticism towards the players and the people doing the hiring until I see them in action, and I highly encourage other people to do the same. It's not like there won't be enough time to do it once we see them. It's not even that far away, with Lock-In Tournament kicking off this weekend. Visa situations are a bit of a mess, so who knows exactly who we're gonna see, but hopefully we start getting some answers to these questions soon. I'll be back next week with a proper Blame game and actual gameplay analysis covering whatever topics are most discussed on Reddit and Twitter. I'll see you guys then.
It's a new year, which means it's a new you, which means maybe you need a new computer or a new monitor or some new accessories. There's a bunch of cool stuff that just got announced, actually, that Alienware's coming out with soon. But right now, why don't you do me a favor and celebrate the new year by doing something maybe I've asked you to do before on a couple of occasions, which is to click the link in the description below and head over to alienware.com/Travis to take a look at all the awesome stuff over at Alienware's website, where you can pick up something swell to get ready for 2022. Thanks to them for their support and their sponsorship of our content.